This old grocery ledger from 1955 seemed ordinary, until an accountant noticed the numbers were recording something far more sinister than sales. Toronto, 2023. Estate sale workers were clearing out an apartment. The woman who lived there had died alone at 94. No family, just boxes of forgotten belongings. In the basement, they found a dusty leather trunk. Inside, yellowed papers and a cracked leather ledger. The worker almost threw it in the trash, but something stopped him. The handwriting was too careful, too deliberate. He donated it to the local historical society instead. Alan was a retired accountant volunteering there. She'd cataloged hundreds of old business records before. This seemed like another routine donation. She opened the ledger. Ashford's General Store, Millbrook, Ontario, established 1952. The first pages were normal. Flour, 45 cents. Sugar, 38 cents. Milk delivered. Standard grocery sales from the 1950s. Then Ellen reached page 47. Her hand stopped moving. Bandages. 12 boxes. MR. Again. Again? That wasn't a sale note. Ellen kept reading. Her pulse quickened. Baby formula. No charge. Bruises on neck worse. Ice. 3 bags. Won't leave him. Children scared. These weren't grocery transactions. These were injury reports. Fear documented in careful handwriting. Someone named Margaret Ashford wasn't just running a store. She was recording abuse, creating evidence when no one else would listen. Ellen's hands trembled as she turned more pages. Entry after entry, month after month. Women's initials. Items that told stories of violence. No charge appearing again and again. Margaret was giving supplies away. To women who couldn't afford them, or couldn't explain the purchases to their husbands. This was 1950s rural Ontario. Police didn't intervene in domestic matters. Women couldn't open bank accounts without husbands' permission. Divorce was nearly impossible. The law protected abusers, not victims. So Margaret created her own justice system. Her own record of crimes no one acknowledged. Ellen pulled the ledger closer. One entry made her breath catch. March 1955. Finger marks visible on throat. Husband came looking. I hid her in stockroom. Margaret hadn't just documented. She'd hidden a woman whose husband was hunting her. Another entry. Baby has broken arm. She says he fell. Baby is 4 months old. Margaret knew. Babies that young don't break their own arms. This wasn't a grocery ledger. This was evidence of a secret war. One woman fighting an entire system designed to keep women silent and trapped. Ellen reached for her phone. She needed to find out what happened to Margaret Ashford, and why this ledger had been hidden in a basement for 68 years. But she was about to discover something far darker. Margaret wasn't just documenting other women's abuse. She was documenting her own, and the man who killed her was someone the entire town trusted.
Ellen contacted historians in Millbrook. The town was tiny, population 300. Everyone knew everyone. But no one remembered Margaret Ashford. That was strange, suspicious, like the town had chosen to forget. Records revealed the basics. Margaret, born 1911, widowed in 1950 when her husband died in Korea. She inherited his general store, ran it alone from 1952 to 1958. A photograph surfaced from town archives, Margaret standing in front of her store, stern face, dark hair pulled back tight, long sleeves despite summer heat, eyes staring directly at the camera, unflinching, unsmiling, a woman who'd seen too much. Ellen returned to the ledger with new focus. Margaret's system became clear. Customer initials protected identities. Items purchased revealed the truth. Bandages meant visible injuries. Ice meant swelling that couldn't be hidden. Aspirin meant pain management. No charge meant Margaret was absorbing the cost herself. Dates were meticulous, creating a timeline, building a case even though no court would hear it. Then Ellen found the later entries. Everything changed in 1957. Margaret stopped just documenting. She started taking action. January 1957. Train ticket to Toronto hidden in flour sack. She left at dawn. Margaret was helping women escape. April 1957. Contacted my cousin in Ottawa. Housekeeper position arranged. She and baby leaving Friday. She had a network. Connections across Ontario. September 1957. Stored her suitcase in cellar. Third attempt to leave. Pray this time she makes it. Third attempt. Margaret never gave up on anyone. Ellen searched archives across Ontario. She found letters Margaret had written to women's church groups, to sympathetic relatives in cities, to anyone who might offer a job, a room, a chance at freedom. Margaret had created an underground railroad for abused women decades before shelters existed, operating from a small-town grocery store where everyone could see, but no one understood what they were seeing. But by mid-1958, the entries shifted again, darker, more desperate. June 1958. Store window broken. Note left. Mind your business, witch. Someone was threatening her now. July 1958. Supplier cancelled credit. Mr. S has been talking. They were destroying her business, punishing her economically. August 1958. Told to stop interfering or face consequences. Ellen noticed something. That entry didn't name who threatened Margaret, just told to stop. Passive voice, like Margaret was afraid to write the name down. Ellen pulled marriage records, census data, property documents, and then she found it. Margaret Ashford married Robert Ashford in 1953. Robert Ashford, mayor of Millbrook from 1953 to 1960. Margaret's husband was the mayor, the most powerful man in town, and he knew what she was doing. The ledger's final entries made Ellen's blood cold. August 10th. He knows about the women. Says I've embarrassed him, ruined his reputation. Margaret was documenting her own husband now. August 15th. He's watching me constantly. I can't help anyone anymore. Then the last entry. August 22nd, 1958. He found the ledger. He knows everything. He's locked me in tonight. I'm hiding this in the coal chute. If anyone finds it, know that I regret nothing. The women I helped are alive. That matters more than I do. The next page was blank. No more entries ever written. Ellen checked the date again. August 22nd, 1958. She pulled up newspaper archives. Her stomach dropped. Front page, August 24th, 1958. Tragic fire destroys general store. Owner perishes in the blaze. Margaret died exactly 24 hours after writing that final entry, after her husband locked her in, after she hid the ledger knowing she might not survive. Was it really an accident? Or did Margaret Ashford know exactly what was coming?
The newspaper article was short, too short. Fire at Ashford's General Store, 2 a.m., August 23rd, 1958. Margaret Ashford, 47, perished in the blaze. Investigation ruled accidental, likely electrical fault. Mayor Robert Ashford expresses profound grief at this tragic loss. Ellen read it 3 times. Margaret's final entry, August 22nd. He locked me in tonight. The fire, August 23rd. Less than 24 hours later. Ruled accidental. Signed off by the mayor. The same mayor who was Margaret's husband. The same man she'd accused of locking her in. Ellen contacted Millbrook Police Cold Case Division. They pulled the 1958 fire investigation file. What she found made her sick. Multiple witnesses reported flames from several locations simultaneously. That's not electrical. That's arson. Margaret's apartment door was locked from the outside. The key was never found. Investigators noted this detail, but the report still concluded accident. The fire marshal's signature. Then, right below it, Mayor Robert Ashford's signature, approving the investigation into his own wife's death. How was that legal? How did no one question it? Ellen brought the ledger to forensic experts. They analyzed Margaret's final entry. The handwriting showed extreme stress, Pressure on the pen, shaky letters. The words, "locked me in," were underlined twice. Heavy, desperate strokes. Expert opinion. Writer was under severe duress, likely fear or immediate threat during writing. Margaret's death certificate revealed more. Cause of death, smoke inhalation. But there was a note in the margins. Extensive bruising on arms and shoulders, consistent with restraint, attributed to fire collapse injuries. Margaret had been grabbed, hard, before the fire started. Someone had hurt her, then locked her in, then set the fire. 2024, Ellen convinced police to reopen the case officially. Modern forensic analysis proved what should have been obvious 66 years ago. The fire was deliberately set, multiple ignition points. Margaret couldn't escape because she was physically locked inside. The door mechanism showed it was locked from the exterior. Someone wanted her dead. Someone with power protected the killer. Robert Ashford died in 1982. Successful businessman, respected community leader. His obituary called him a devoted husband who tragically lost his first wife to accident. He remarried within a year of Margaret's death, moved to Toronto, sold the store property for profit, lived 24 more years, never questioned, never investigated, never faced justice. The system protected him completely while erasing her. But Margaret had protected something too. That ledger hidden in the coal chute. Her final act wasn't surrender, it was defiance, making sure someone, someday, would know the truth. Ellen was holding that truth now, 66 years later. The question was, did any of the women Margaret saved survive? Were they still alive to tell their side of the story? Have you ever wondered how many silent heroes lived in your grandparents' generation? People who risked everything and were erased from history? Margaret's story was hidden for nearly 7 decades. How many others are still buried, waiting for someone to look closely enough?
CBC News ran Ellen's story in January 2024. Hidden Ledger exposes 1950s Underground Railroad for abused women. The article showed photos of the ledger, Margaret's handwriting, her final message. Within 48 hours, Ellen's phone rang. An elderly voice, strong despite the years. "My name is Mary. I'm 94 years old. In your article, you showed an entry with the initials MR. That's me. Margaret Ashford saved my life in 1957. Ellen couldn't speak. The woman from the ledger. Alive. My husband was going to kill me. I knew it. Margaret hid me in her stockroom when he came looking for me. She gave me money for a train ticket, told me where to go in Toronto, where I'd be safe. I never saw her again. For 66 years, I thought I was a coward for running, for not staying to help her. The guilt has lived with me every single day." The second call came hours later. "My name is Teresa. I'm 89. TP in your article. That's me. My baby's arm wasn't broken from falling. His father broke it when he was 3 months old. Margaret documented it, called authorities. They did nothing. She found me a job in Ottawa, got me out. My son is 69 now. He has grandchildren. None of them would exist if Margaret hadn't intervened." Third call. "Susan, I'm 91. SL in the ledger. I tried to leave my husband 3 times. He found me twice, nearly killed me both times. Margaret kept my suitcase hidden in her store cellar for 8 months, waiting until it was safe. She saved not just me, she saved my 3 children. 2 are still alive today." By week's end, 5 women had come forward, 5 survivors, ages 87 to 94, living across Canada. Vancouver, Ottawa, Toronto, all alive because Margaret Ashford risked everything. Ellen arranged a video call, all 5 women together for the first time. They'd never met, never known about each other. Margaret had kept them separate, protected each identity. Now, 66 years later, they saw each other's faces. 5 women who'd been terrified young mothers, now grandmothers, great-grandmothers. They cried. They laughed. They shared memories of Margaret, the stern woman in long sleeves who never smiled but whose eyes held fierce compassion, who gave them supplies with no questions, who whispered addresses and names, who said, "You deserve better. Now go." Police investigation concluded March 2024. Official ruling, Margaret Ashford's death was homicide. Robert Ashford named as primary suspect. Deceased, cannot be prosecuted, but officially acknowledged. Justice delayed 66 years. Margaret's name cleared. She didn't die in an accident. She was murdered. For the crime of helping women escape violence, for embarrassing powerful men, for refusing to stay silent. The 5 survivors decided something. They wanted a memorial, something permanent, so no one would forget Margaret Ashford again, so the next generation would know that heroes don't always look like heroes. Sometimes they look like stern shopkeepers in small towns. Sometimes they document abuse in ledgers. Sometimes they die for doing what's right. But their legacy lives on in the people they saved. Would you have had the courage to do what Margaret did, knowing it might cost you everything, knowing the law wouldn't protect you, knowing powerful men would destroy you? Think about that, because Margaret knew all of it, and she did it anyway.
August 2024. Millbrook held a ceremony. The site where Ashford's General Store once stood, now just an empty lot, overgrown grass, cracked pavement. Nothing to mark what happened there. Until today. Over 200 people gathered. Reporters, historians, civil rights activists, local residents, black and white, young and old, and 5 elderly women standing together at the front. The survivors: Mary, 94, Teresa, 89, Susan, 91, and 2 others who'd chosen privacy until now. All 5 came to witness this moment. The town council had voted unanimously to issue a formal apology for failing to protect Margaret, for allowing her murder to be covered up, for erasing her from history for 66 years. A black woman council member named Angela stepped forward to speak. On behalf of Millbrook, I acknowledge the grave injustice committed against Margaret Ashford. County officials participated in murder and its cover-up. This was not an isolated incident. This was systematic silencing of women who dared to help other women escape violence. We failed Margaret Ashford. We failed the women she saved. We failed our community by choosing comfort over truth. Today, we acknowledge that failure. Today, we say her name. Today, we make sure she is never forgotten again. Angela pulled a cord. The covering fell away. A memorial plaque. Polished stone. Margaret's name engraved. Margaret Ashford, 1911-1958. Shopkeeper. Protector. Hero. She risked everything to save women and children from violence when no one else would. Her courage gave them life. Her sacrifice demands we do better. The 5 survivors stood together. Elderly women who once were terrified mothers with nowhere to turn. They held a photograph of Margaret, that stern-faced woman in long sleeves, the woman who saved their lives. Mary stepped forward to speak, her voice steady. For 66 years, I carried guilt, thinking I was a coward for running, for not staying to help her. Now I understand. Margaret wanted us to run. She wanted us to live. She died making sure we could. The greatest way we honor her memory is keeping this story alive, making sure no woman ever needs a hero like Margaret because the system finally protects them the way it should have protected her. Ellen stood beside them, holding the ledger that started everything. Margaret's final entry was framed, displayed for everyone to see. I regret nothing. The women I helped are alive. That matters more than I do. Those words written hours before her death, now preserved forever. The numbers told Margaret's impact. The ledger documented 17 different women between 1952 and 1958. Researchers confirmed 9 survivors still living as of 2024. Conservative estimate, Margaret directly saved over 30 lives when you count children and grandchildren who exist because their mothers and grandmothers escaped. 30 people, living across Canada and beyond. Teachers, nurses, engineers, grandparents, all connected by one thread. Margaret Ashford refused to look away when she saw suffering. Teresa spoke next, her voice breaking with emotion. My son is 69. He has 3 children. They have children. My great-grandchildren exist because Margaret Ashford broke the law in 1957 to get me out. She risked her business, her safety, eventually her life. For me, for us. I want my great-grandchildren to know her name, to know that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. That courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's a woman in a grocery store documenting abuse and slipping train tickets into flour sacks. That's heroism too. The crowd sang, "We shall overcome." Old voices and young voices joining together. The song echoing across the empty lot where Margaret's store once stood, where she lived, where she worked, where she saved lives, where she died. Ellen thought about the ledger she'd almost missed. How close this story came to being lost forever. If that estate sale worker had thrown the trunk away, if Ellen hadn't looked closely enough, if no one had cared, Margaret would have remained forgotten. The 5 survivors would never have known why she died. The truth would have stayed buried with Robert Ashford. But it didn't. Because Margaret made sure evidence survived. Because she chose documentation over silence. Because in her final hours, locked in and knowing death was coming, she hid the ledger where someone might find it. Someday, when it was safe to tell the truth. Margaret Ashford died in 1958, murdered for compassion. But the women she saved lived to become mothers, grandmothers, great-grandmothers. Her legacy isn't written in stone. It's written in 30 people who exist because one woman refused to look away when she saw suffering. Because one woman believed that justice matters even when the law disagrees. Because one woman chose courage over survival. And in the end, that choice echoed forward through generations. 30 lives, dozens of grandchildren, hundreds of great-grandchildren still to come, all carrying forward a legacy they're only now beginning to understand. Margaret's final words remain true today. The women I helped are alive. That matters more than I do. She was wrong about one thing, though. She matters too. She matters tremendously. And now, finally, the world knows it. What will your legacy be? Will anyone tell your story 66 years from now? Margaret probably never imagined we'd be standing here today, saying her name, honoring her sacrifice. She just did what she thought was right. Maybe that's all any of us can do. Do what's right. Even when it's hard. Even when it's dangerous. Even when no one will know. Because somehow, someday, someone might find the evidence you left behind, and your truth will finally be told. They hid her for 66 years. A town, a mayor, a whole system working together to bury one woman's courage. And they almost succeeded. If that makes your blood boil, subscribe, because I'm not stopping either. There are countless women like Margaret Ashford, heroes erased by powerful men, murders disguised as accidents, evidence hidden in basements and attics, waiting for someone stubborn enough to look. And now I want to ask you something that should haunt you. If you were Margaret, locked inside that store with smoke rising and the man who vowed to love you trying to kill you, what would your final act be? Would you beg? Would you break? Would you pray? Or would you do what she did and leave the truth behind for the world to find? Comment your answer. Be brutally honest. Because one day, your courage might be tested too, and you'll want to know who you decided to be before the fire ever starts.